Good evening. It is an honor to speak with you all tonight. My name is Jacob Kaplan. As Ann said, I'm a first-year economics student at the University of Florida, and I was born and raised in Bradenton. I first got involved with the Florida Student Policy Forum this past September and have been working on the school corporal punishment legislation ever since. As Graham just mentioned, the pending language within Representative Trabolsi's and Senator Galatiud's education bills enshrines within Florida statute a parental right to choose whether their child can be corporally punished in Florida's public and charter schools. This bill is a paramount step forward in the fight for parental rights and against government overreach in the classroom. It protects the liberty and dignity of our state's children and the sanctity of the parent-child relationship. However, we must not be complacent. Although the bill represents forward momentum toward our end goal of the complete elimination of corporal punishment in Florida's classrooms, there is still significant progress to be made. Whether or not you believe that corporal punishment within the home by a caring parent is an effective form of discipline, I think we can all agree that the government should not be in the business of hitting kids. Ultimately, government-sanctioned corporal punishment opens the door for abuse of our state's most vulnerable. For instance, corporal punishment was outlawed in Florida's penal system back in 1923, following backlash over the brutal whipping death of Martin Tabor, a North Dakota-born 22-year-old who was arrested for riding a Tallahassee train without paying his fare. Despite legal limits of 10 lashes and his family having paid his fine, Tabor received dozens of lashes for being too sick to work, all the while begging for mercy. He succumbed to his injuries not long after. Martin Tabor's story is not unique. In just the 3 months surrounding his ordeal, there were reported to be 94 similar cases in Florida's correctional system. That's all to say that no matter the safeguards in place, the systemic physical punishment is ripe for abuse. In Jackson v. Bishop, the 1968 federal court case that outlawed corporal punishment in the Arkansas prison system, Judge Blackman noted that rules in this area are easily evaded and often ignored, and quote, easily subject to abuse in the hands of the sadistic and the unscrupulous. He went on to say, quote, corporal punishment generates hate towards the keepers who punish and towards the system which permits it. It is degrading to the punisher and to the punished alike. A potent example of this type of abuse in the education system is the widespread cruelty that was perpetrated at the Dosher School for Boys, where students were physically and sexually abused, tortured, and killed under the guise of discipline. More recently, there was a 2014 incident in Broward County where a 10-year-old with autism was bruised and another special needs student was injured, cursed at, and threatened by the same teacher's aide, despite the fact that school corporal punishment was banned in Broward County at the time. Prosecutors, however, were unable to indict the wrongdoer, as state law still ultimately allowed the practice. These cases, along with countless others, demonstrate the fact that any allowance of government-sanctioned corporal punishment inevitably leads to abuse. The prohibition of corporal punishment protects both the school and the child. Schools are protected from civil lawsuits, saving the government time and valuable taxpayer dollars. Children are protected from torment and fear, maintaining schools as their safe place for growth and learning. Furthermore, students with disabilities and students who have experienced trauma and or abuse, the most affected psychologically by physical discipline, will benefit from an academic environment that accommodates their unique circumstances, prioritizing their learning and overall well-being. Research shows that school corporal punishment is linked to worse academic outcomes, including lower math proficiency and ACT scores, higher absenteeism and dropout rates, more present and future misbehavior, negative effects on physical and mental health, and negative neurological effects. In fact, studies show that students who are physically punished are more likely to become violent later in life, especially more likely to exhibit domestic violence. Corporal punishment has also been shown to be generally ineffective at curbing the desired behaviors in the long term. Some may argue that physical discipline is necessary for maintaining order in schools. However, research consistently shows that positive behavioral interventions and supports are more effective at improving both behavioral and academic outcomes without the negative side effects. Ending corporal punishment in schools not only stops a harmful disciplinary practice, but also restores respect for children as human beings in the education system. This brings me to another important point. We must recognize the importance of taking our students' voices seriously within the democratic process. Our work on housing reform, on prison phone calls, and on school corporal punishment in partnership with Moms for Liberty illustrates the ability of student voices to make change. College campuses have long been at the forefront of meaningful change, from anti-Vietnam War demonstrations to the overthrow of the Pahlavi dynasty in the late 70s Iran. At the end of the day, the passion and creativity of young people can often change minds when data and ideas alone fail to. After all, our generation is perhaps most affected by the policy decisions of today, from Social Security to the rising national debt, and thus should have a hand in its creation. The involvement of student voices in policy decisions should be a key consideration in ensuring that governance actually meets the wants and needs of constituents. I urge you all, as moms and dads, to encourage your children to be civically engaged. Nudge them toward things like voter registration drives, organizations like the Florida Student Policy Forum, and even just plain voting in elections. Encourage them to stand up for things that matter to them, as they may be the voice that ultimately tips the scale. They are the future, and they have the power to shape it for the better. With all of that in mind, I ask for your help in taking the next step forward toward the complete discontinuation of corporal punishment in Florida schools. At the state level, I ask you to reach out to your elected officials and prompt them to support Senate Bill 1618 and House Bill 1255, which are currently making their way through the Florida legislature. At the county level, I ask you to speak at the meetings of school boards that still permit corporal punishment and demand that the government cease the needless assaults on our state's children. Thank you all so much for listening, and have a great night.